Hello friends, this is Worm, and today, actually over the past couple days, I created a new modifier slash game mode inside Destiny 2's PvP. Now, I say I created this is not really a new idea, and there's been a lot of like challenges I've seen, people doing on YouTube and stuff like that, but the principle behind this game mode is randomly selecting your loadouts. And I know, I don't remember who it is. I know there's somebody who does like a random trials weekend series thing. Every weekend they use Destiny item managers randomized feature to randomize their loadouts and stuff. But what I'm talking about here is not a challenge for the individual, because people who like to use the randomized loadout, right? Like that's an individual challenge. Like if I go in and I say, okay, like I'm gonna randomize my loadout completely, it might give me a weapon that I'm completely unfamiliar with, but of course I'm still playing with people who are using their cozy meta. But in the modifier slash game mode that I'm referring to, I'm talking everybody in the game mode gets their own, gets their loadout, completely randomized and locked for the duration of the game. Now, I think it's important to go over some of the, some more rules of this, because I think that if you had true randomization, it could be potentially chaos. Some of the rules would include, number one, you're guaranteed to get a primary ammo weapon. In loadouts, in random loadouts, like through dim, you're potentially going to get 2 specials and a heavy. I think with the version that Destiny puts in the game, it will completely randomize your loadout, but it will guarantee that you have a primary ammo in at least one of your slots. Sometimes you get double primary, but it'll guarantee that you have at least one primary ammo weapon. That way you can actually, engage in combat and stuff like that. That way you're not starved for ammo. Now, I also think that another rule is when it comes to special ammo does have more uses to it. Maybe you spawn with 2 special ammo instead of just 1, and perhaps special ammo just casually regenerates over the course every 7 seconds or something like that. Maybe 10 seconds if you want to do that. And the reason why I think that special ammo should be more available is because, again, you're not having the most meta stuff popping up in the game. Okay, you might get a rapid fire shotgun, which are not good in PvP, so you need to have ammo for that at all times, versus your opponent who might get their Felwinter's Lie or their God Roll Matador 64, whatever it might be. So I think that having slowly regenerating special ammo would be beneficial. That way you could actually use the special weapon that you have equipped in your slot, whatever it might be. I think that also in terms of the loadout that you get, I think that should be completely randomized. However, I think that it should allow for your aspects, both aspects, to be slotted, and then all the fragment slots to be filled. Because I know one thing that's the Destiny item manager randomizer does, it has the potential to not equip an aspect and not equip fragments. So you go in and it's oh, I have 5 fragment slots, but there's only 3 fragments. I think that in this chaos modifier, which is what I'll go ahead and call it, in this chaos modifier, it makes sure the game makes sure that you have 2 aspects and however many fragments total that you can equip. But outside of that, it completely randomizes your grenade, your melee ability, if you have multiple melee abilities like Titans do, and some warlocks do. It randomizes which super you get, of course, your aspects, your fragments, even your class ability. It might give you gambler's dodge, it might give you marksman's dodge, it might give you acrobat's dodge, depending on if you get solar or not. Of course, limitations, it wouldn't just mix and match any aspects and fragments. I think it would be cool to the idea, I toyed around with the idea of doing that, you get almost like a prismatic subclass, but with every single aspect and fragment of the game. So you might get Touch of Thunder paired with Bastion, right? But I also think that would be a lot for the game to kind of process, and I don't know if that would be necessarily a good idea. But it is completely random which subclass you get. About the only thing you have control over is which class you're playing on. If you load in as a hunter, you're going to play as a hunter, but you're going to get your stuff completely randomized. And then in terms of how the game mode actually plays out, I think just having it as a modifier would be appropriate. That way you could play a variety of game modes. Control, you could do it in Trials of Osiris, you could do it in maybe the competitive playlist if you just wanted to go crazy. You could do it in Relic, all these other game modes. If it was a modifier, if it was designed as its own game mode, like Mayhem is its own game mode, Mayhem's not a modifier, people might just not want to play it, or it might not be in rotation as much as people want it to be. So that having it as a modifier would be a better option for Bungie to do. But let's talk about why this modifier would actually spice up the game and why I think a lot of people would like it. And starting off, let's get the elephant out of the room, the meta. In Destiny 2, there are clearly defined metas, okay? Right now, obviously, I think that we're in a little bit more of an open meta. You have more choices to choose from, but Kvostov was very heavily present. 140 hand cannons, very heavily present. High impact pulse rifles, very heavily present in the Crucible. And then you have things like 120 scout rifles that are just never seen. 180 scout rifles, sidearms, which I just rarely ever see sidearms. I rarely ever see scout rifles. Even submachine guns are kind of tapering off. I'm not seeing as many submachine guns as I once did in the past. And having this modifier that completely randomizes everybody's loadout would break up this meta, because what you have equipped and what your teammates and the enemies have equipped is all at the mercy of RNG. So now you don't have a situation where you could get stacked with, 6 people using rows and shotguns, and a God Roll Matador. Now you don't know what your enemy teammates have. You don't even know what your own teammates have, but you can be safely assured that you're going to run into a variety of weapons. You might find 2 pulse rifles, 2 hand cannons, 2 auto rifles. You might find a different primary ammo archetype for every single player. Somebody might have a bow, the other one might have a sidearm, then you got a pulse rifle, a scout rifle, an auto rifle, a submachine gun, all on the enemy team. Like, everybody's loadout is completely randomized. But again, it would reduce the amount of meta stuff you're running into, and that to me is a huge breath of fresh air. Like, the meta, like, don't get me wrong, the meta is good, and Bungie does a good job of changing the meta season by season. When Revenant drops here in just a couple weeks, we'll probably see a shift in the meta, which is really nice. But at the same time, like, it would be nice to completely just break the meta mold by having a game mode that randomly selects everybody's loadout. But besides just the meta, this would also force players to use weapons outside of their comfort zone. And this is a big thing for me, because me for example, I am attached at the hip to Rat King. Okay, I love using Rat King. I'm approaching like 30,000 Crucible kills on Rat King. I love it. I use it religiously, and I don't use anything else besides Rat King in the Crucible. So when I go on another character, like a Titan or a Warlock or something like that, sometimes I find myself struggling to use other weapons. I find myself struggling to use hand cannons or auto rifles, pulse rifles, whatever it might be. So naturally, I gravitate back to Rat King. And especially with, this kind of intertwines with the meta. Like, if you're not running meta stuff, it is potentially difficult to do well, because you're up against meta things. And this is why, randomized loadouts that are currently available through things like DIM or Destiny Item Manager are considered challenges. But if this is happening to everybody in the lobby, not gonna have as much challenge, but it's also gonna prompt players to use other weapons. Like, you might never touch sidearms, and you get a sidearm one game, and so you start using it, and you're like, oh hey, I really like sidearms. Let me go out of this game and let me go into the regular Crucible and start using sidearms, or whatever it might be. You get a chance to taste a variety of weapons. And of course, this variety of weapons is going to be dependent on like what you have available to you inside your vault. I'm not saying Bungie could like give every player just a completely random weapon from whatever encounter in the game, although that could be a cool idea, and I did toy around with that, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But back to what I was saying, one of the pros of this game mode is it forces players to use other things, to use things outside of the meta, which I think is a lot of fun. Another fun aspect is, of course, like the competition in these games is going to be like have a lot of variety, because players who play the game pretty casually, who they gravitate towards one weapon, say like hand cannons, right? They might really enjoy using hand cannons, but not touch much on other stuff. So one game, they get a hand cannon, they're going to be at the top of the board because they got, their God Roll Rose, just for example. But the next game, they get a really mid-tier PvE auto rifle or something like that. So then that person who was at the top in the last game is now down at the bottom. And of course, the people who are consistently at the top are really people who they utilize more than one kit in Destiny 2. They utilize all different weapon archetypes and stuff like that. So I think that would be a breath of fresh air. And of course, the last good aspect of it is knowing that, hey, my loadout's random, everybody else's loadout is random. Every game is going to feel completely different. And this is one of the biggest things, because for me, when I'm playing in the Crucible, I feel like a lot of Crucible games, even though technically all Crucible games are different because enemy players are not as predictable as AI, it can get to a point where it's like, yeah, I'm up against this 3-stack for the 4th time. I know that they're using, you know, whatever meta loadouts or, you know, whatever loadout, so I kind of know it's coming. But if everybody's loadout is randomized, I don't know if I'm about to run into, you know, potentially a 6-stack of Rat Kings who just got crazy lucky and every single one of them got Rat King equipped in their top slot, or if every single one of them maybe got a 120 scout, or if most of them have long range weapons and it's a super close range map. Like, I don't know, like it's one of those things that, like, that would bring me some comfort in terms of like a fun factor, right? Is like, hey, like, I don't know what anybody else is using. It makes me feel better about having my completely random loadout. But yeah, some of the cons of this game mode, of course, like we said earlier, depending on how much you play the game, take a player who has, you know, 200 hours in Destiny 2 versus a player that has 5,000 hours in Destiny 2, you're going to see a wide variety of different weapons. Like, you know, players who exclusively play PvP, they don't do anything inside PvE, they're probably going to have a vault full, or most of their weapons on their characters are going to be PvP oriented. So, you know, players who play that are going to have more PvP options, so they're going to do better inside PvP, and that could be seen as problematic. But I think also that's pardon me, I think also that's kind of appropriate. Like, if you invest a ton of time in PvP and you have mostly PvP god rolls in your vaults, like, now that it would be a time that you could actually flex your PvP prowess, so to speak, because hey, like, you know, I'm consistently getting you know, my PvP weapons out here. But I think a lot of players would see that as a downside, because a lot of players who are casual or just play PvE and not PvP would kind of think, oh, like, it's not fair because, like, the PvP players just get better stuff because they already have PvP god rolls. I only have PvE weapons. And I think that could be like a negative aspect of it. Again, it's kind of double-edged sword, you know, you got the positive, you got the negative side of it. But other negatives, other cons of this game mode, I mean, honestly, I think the last con is like just how difficult it would be to make. And this is not really on the game mode itself. This is just, you know, Bungie to randomize 12 people's loadouts through their own servers and engines. Like, that sounds like it would take a long time and a lot of processing to do, right? Like, you know, it's got to pick out 12 people. And I would say for this instance, like, just do connection-based matchmaking. Don't do skill-based matchmaking, just connection-based matchmaking, that we can get 12 people together as fast as they can. Then it would have to check through their vaults, all 12 people's vaults, you know, times however many lobbies are going on. Mind you, like, there's like thousands of different lobbies going in the Crucible. And especially if it's a new game mode, it's going to be even higher. But, you know, it's got to scan through everybody's vaults. It's got to pull all that stuff. It's got to get it equipped. And, like, whenever I use the random feature on dim or something like that, like, it takes a little bit of time for it to think, okay, like, here we go, pull this weapon, then pull this weapon, okay, and then go this armor piece, and if you can add, I can't remember if dim customizes aspects and fragments, but, you know, then it's got to customize aspects and fragments and stuff like that, and it could just really bog down the game and make it feel like it takes forever to get inside of one of these games. Still, I think it would be an interesting thing for Bungie to try, and it would, like I said, it would be a breath of fresh air, because now nobody's got the meta. And I think as a pretty hardcore, pretty intense PvP player, I would love this personally, because now, like I said, it would give me an opportunity to play the game without having to use like the meta options, right? And I think most like hardcore players would probably agree that like that would be a breath of fresh air. You know, now I'm guaranteed, almost guaranteed, to not run into a lobby of just hand cannon shotgun users. Now there's going to be actual variety. But yeah, with that being said, that's all I've got to say about this game mode. I call it like the chaos modifier. I think it's a modifier, it's better, but that's what I gotta say about the chaos modifier. Of course, I want to hear your thoughts on completely randomizing Destiny 2 loadouts for a PvP game. Do you like it? Do you not like it? What troubles do you think it would have? What's good do you think it would bring to the game? Just tell me all that stuff in the comments. Of course, do me a favor, drop a like, it helps the channel a lot. Subscribe for more daily Destiny content, conversation, debates, discussions, all that good stuff. And do me one more favor, watch the videos you see here on the end screen, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you'll like them. Guys, I'll see y'all next time. Bye for now.